without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, 5 years ago, our economy went off a cliff. We all remember just how bad it was. Wall Street crashed, great industries faced ruin, trillions of dollars in savings of American families gone, wiped out. That was the reality. And it was a nightmare for millions of Americans. They lost their jobs, they lost their homes. So many saw a lifetime's work disappear through no fault of their own. 5 years later, we are slowly making our way back. We've seen 42 months of private sector job growth, but that's 7.5 million jobs. That's a new start for millions of Americans. But as families in New Mexico know, having a job in this economy doesn't mean the struggles are over. We're moving forward, but not fast enough. Too many folks in my state are still looking for jobs, or they're working and still struggling to pay for rent, food, and gas. And they still haven't caught up to where they were before, even though they are working harder than ever. New Mexico's unemployment remains too high. It is at 6.9% and has been stuck around 7% for way too long. We still have a ways to go, so we can't afford any more self-inflicted wounds. No more manufactured crises, no more government dysfunction. Unfortunately, we're seeing that again and again. A minority of radical obstructionists in the House and in the Senate are threatening a government shutdown unless they get their way. They want to repeal the law of the land, even though they lack the votes to do so. They are driving us towards another cliff. They are willing to endanger the full faith and credit of the United States, all for their narrow ideological agenda. And the American people will be the ones who feel the consequences. There is no reason for this drama that threatens our struggling economy. The American people don't want this. From Wall Street to Main Street, most Americans are watching this spectacle with disbelief. They're looking for progress, for recovery, and they're getting gridlock over and over with no budget, no long-term plan, and if this continues, with a government in paralysis. All this to drive a tank through health care reform. The American people don't want to shut the government to prevent people from getting their health insurance. They want jobs and they want economic recovery. It's clear to folks on all sides of this desperate stunt that this is dangerous. For even the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not exactly a leftist group, has said, stop it. They told the House last week, and this is what they said to the House of Representatives: it is not in the best interest of the U.S. business community or the American people to risk even a brief government shutdown. Likewise, the U.S. Chamber respectfully urges the House of Representatives to raise the debt ceiling in a timely manner and thus eliminate any question of threat to the full faith and credit of the United States government. We need to move past these partisan games and get back to working on our economy. We need to provide stability so that our nation's families and businesses can grow and prosper. We need to pass a bill that prevents a government shutdown and funds the programs critical to our economic health. I want to talk about the effect on my home state of New Mexico. New Mexico's economy can't afford these partisan games. We're already struggling with sequestration. In New Mexico, sequestration is a painful reality, having a chilling effect on our economy. Folks are worried about their jobs. The most vulnerable groups, the poor, families with children, seniors, and Native Americans, face serious cuts in education and social services. Our state has two great national laboratories, Sandia and Los Alamos. Their work is essential to the security and safety of all Americans, keeping our nation's nuclear stockpile safe and secure. We are host to 3 Air Force bases as well as White Sands Missile Range. This budget impasse is damaging to these installations, and it threatens economic chaos in the nearby communities. Businesses that rely on federal contracts wonder if they can keep their doors open. Sequestration is already damaging small businesses that survived the recession. Businesses like Queston Construction, a general contractor. Queston's president, Tina Cordova, has seen the number of employees shrink from near 40 to just 18 today. And then there are the businesses like PSC, a 100% Native American, woman-owned security personnel business that had to let go employees last year. Threatening shutdowns only makes this worse. These partisan games are also hurting the small businesses that depend on tourism. According to the National Park Service, New Mexico's national parks and monuments had 1.5 million visitors last year. We can't afford to close down sites like Bandelier National Monument, Carlsbad Caverns, Chaco Canyon, Tent Rocks National Monument, Bosque del Apache Wildlife Refuge, and a host of other unique and special places. Customers who visit these sites stay in our hotels and eat at our restaurants. Tourism means big dollars for New Mexico and our small businesses, about $5.9 billion in direct spending. But here we are with a House resolution that is playing politics with our economy. This is a dead end. We're on the wrong train, on the wrong track, and going nowhere. Americans understand this, and I think that's why they are so disappointed in us. Our economy can't afford even the threat of government shutdown. Too many businesses and families are still barely making ends meet 5 years after Wall Street crashed. Today's vote is some good news. We are facing obstruction, but we are moving forward. In a bipartisan way, I believe the Senate can do its job. It can pass a bill to fund the government without partisan poison pill amendments. Then it will go back to the House. With little time to spare, we can only hope that the House leaders will come to their senses and allow a bipartisan bill, not a partisan bill, to move forward. But when that happens, if it happens, we have more challenges ahead. The House has drastically underfunded programs that the American people depend on. I just talked a bit about the impact on New Mexico. Now I'd like to talk for a minute as chairman of an appropriations subcommittee. We see the needs out there. We see the need for investments. We can't keep kicking the can down the road hoping that somehow a miracle will happen and our roads and bridges will fix themselves, that our veterans will get the resources they need without funding, that our national labs will be able to take on additional responsibility without additional resources. In the case of my subcommittee, Financial Services and General Government, we're making sure our financial systems are sound so that Americans won't have to worry about a collapse, about losing their retirement or their homes or their life savings. We're making sure we don't need a government bailout again, that we're protecting consumers against fraud. The House bill would put all of those important functions at risk. We can't afford that. The American people can't afford that, and we will continue fighting for a common sense path forward. And one of the areas in my subcommittee is small business, funding the Small Business Administration. If we go into a government shutdown, the Small Business Administration closes down, all those small businesses across America that rely on loans, that rely on advice, that rely on small business development centers aren't going to be able to do that. So taking an idea from the beginning of a business through a business plan, it's going to thwart entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. We can't afford that. So I would plead with my friends over in the House, when you get our bill, you're going to get it this week or near the end of the week. Please think long and hard and pass it, and then let's move forward. Thank you, Madam President, and I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.